Okay, welcome to another episode of the Gull-Mouth Action Podcast, where we take a look at all the latest goings on at Brighton and Hove Albion. I'm Derren Howard, and this week I'm joined by Sussex World reporters Sam Moton and Henry Bryant, and lifelong Brighton fan and columnist Ian Hart. Brighton, along with the rest of the Premier League, pause for the international break and resume action this Saturday at the Amex Stadium against Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup quarter-final. So, Ian, let's start with you first. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of talk of the painful loss at the City Ground. I'm sure that will feature quite prominently in the build-up this week. So, Brighton, first of all, can Brighton get revenge and progress to the last four and set up another Wembley semi-final?
Yeah, I mean, the defeat was bad. I was on holiday at the time, and I had it by text, and fans weren't very happy. But it all seemed to be. It's almost turned into some sort of cathartic experience, hasn't it?
Yeah.
We had this bonfire at the training ground where he burnt his tactics, a bit like Kirk Douglas in the Vikings. That's one for the teenagers.
That's one of my favourite stories of the season. That is.
But it is. And then we've had this turnaround, and then we won the 4 games on the bounce in the top flight, which we hadn't done since 80-81, and I went to 3 of those 4 games. My mum wouldn't let me go to Sunderland away because I was only 16. Look, they were very. I did it in the column the other week. There are comparisons to when Palace got done 9-0 in 1989 by Liverpool, and then in the very same season they knocked them out of the FA Cup in the semi-final. So the 7-0 will actually be on Nottingham Forest's mind as much as it is Brighton's mind. Brighton, it will be, that we had this clear out. We burnt the tactics. We've now gone on. We haven't lost in 7. We should have won 7. We should have beaten Manchester City at the Etihad. So we go forward. This is our 5th FA Cup quarter-final in our history. The other 4 have been a bit of a mixed bag. Check the column this week. It's online. But this is the one, I believe, this is the best chance the Albion have had of winning the FA Cup. Every one of those 7 teams left in the competition, Brighton can beat on their day. You take McAllister and Caicedo, the Europe qualifying squad was a great squad. Yeah. All round, ability-wise, this is a better squad. Yes, we had trouble replacing McAllister and Caicedo, but this is the best squad of Albion players we've ever had. Is he the best manager? I don't know. I made a very bold claim last week, or bold prediction, when I said that I felt that he could win the Champions League before his 40th birthday.
Yeah, I saw that. That's a great column. Yeah.
Sadly, I don't think. Well, they're always a great column, love. Don't worry about that.
No, they are.
But that is a prediction. I believe that this boy is something special. Boy, well, he's younger than my daughter. This lad is something special, and he's got it. But you have blips in management. Don't forget the season that we're talking about when Palace beat Liverpool in the FA Cup semi-final. In the 4th round, Alex Ferguson was 1 game from getting the sack at Manchester United. So all managers have blips. All managers have learning curves. All managers have bumpy roads. We've had our bumpy road. I firmly believe this is the best squad we've ever had. And this, to date, is the best chance we will ever have to win the FA Cup. And I actually believe, and I'll say it here now, we are going to win the FA Cup.
Wow, that's some prediction. And yeah, I agree with you. I think the way Herzella dealt with that defeat has been really, really impressive following that. But it's not going to be easy, Sam, is it? Nottingham Forest, they've been a surprise package of the Premier League this season. And what have you been impressed by them this season, and which players have stood out for you?
Yeah, it's a difficult question because there's just so many questions and so many players to name, really, because they have been brilliant at Nottingham Forest. I mean, the league position says it all. Third in the league, obviously just 4 points below second place Arsenal. So it really is incredible, and they look almost certain to be getting into the Champions League places, unless obviously there's a bit of a collapse in the last few games of the season. But as I say, they've just been so solid, and the kind of the whole team have just been kind of all working together to a really great kind of end goal. Really, they've obviously been set up brilliantly by Nuno. Espirito Santo, and obviously just firstly you have to mention Chris Wood. He scored goals for fun this season, fourth in the top scorers charts with 18 goals. He's only behind Salah, Haaland and Isak, but he hasn't scored since February 15th. So Brighton perhaps could be hopeful he might be quieter than he was in the last game, obviously when he scored a hat-trick.
He got a hat-trick, yeah.
So there's a hopeful signs that he might not be firing on all cylinders at the moment, but he's been so brilliant this season. At any point, he can get back into scoring goals as he has been. And he's kind of just that kind of perfect Premier League striker that knows where the goal is, knows where to be, and he really is a quality player. And you obviously have to mention Morgan Gibbs-White, Elanga, Hudson-Odoi, Milenkovic, Aina, Elliot Anderson. They're just some of the names that have kind of impressed me this season. They really have been a superb team that have just made other teams look very average and just so well drilled and cause problems for anyone, really. And Brighton will have to be on their A game on Saturday. But I feel like the memories of that 7-0 will actually help Brighton, because there's no team talk, there's no motivation needed. That's it. That game will be
the but Sam, could the Champions League thing be a factor as well? You know,
100%.
Their money men will be sitting there, not saying to Nuno direct, but their money men will know it is better for them to get in the Champions League than win the FA Cup. That's the sad reality of our modern day football. But Forest will, 100 times out of 100, if asked the question, would you rather get in the Champions League or win the FA Cup? Their money men, their people that are controlling their club will say we want to get in Europe. So that's going to be a factor. That's going to be at the back of their minds. Brighton,
question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember we asked this question on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, from my point of view, I think winning the FA Cup trumps it. I think football is about winning trophies, and obviously, from Brighton's point of view, they haven't in so many years, and you kind of think, well, a trophy would be even better than getting to the Champions League. And obviously, if you could, you'd have both. If you win the FA Cup, you automatically get into the Europa League, so you kind of get a taste of European football anyway. So I feel like both teams will be desperate to win this game and go to Wembley, obviously, for the semi-final.
You think so? Yeah. You don't think Forest would really have an eye on, because Derren mentions could there be a collapse when in their European qualification? I personally think they're all right. The players maybe, but they will want to be in that Champions League by hook or by crook.
Well, I think the fact is they've obviously got the extra fifth spot as well this year.
We will know at 4 o'clock when the team sheets come out, won't we? We will know at 4 o'clock when those team sheets come out. We will know roughly what the game plan is. If they go strong, Harty's got it wrong. Not for the first time in his career, and not for the last time. But if they're resting a couple of people, and we go strong, we need to put out the strongest available 11 in the club. All right. Well, we don't need to be sentimental. We don't need to be thinking about Jimmy Melia and inflatable seagulls. We need to put the strongest team out, and we need to win that game of football.
I think Brighton will go strong. But Nottingham Forest, they've only just scraped through, haven't they, in the previous rounds? They needed penalty to beat Ipswich. They needed penalties to beat Exeter City as well. So it hasn't been straightforward. I personally think it was a blip at the City ground, and I think it would be more like the 2-2 that they played out at the Amex earlier this season. I think it's going to be very, very feisty. But Henry, so after the loss at the City ground, as we touched on earlier, Fabian Hurlers has said after the match that they didn't have a midfielder that was fit to play 90 minutes, and then also set fire to his tactics as well. But then looking back, what did you make of the loss, and what have you made of how Hurzel has dealt with the response since then?
Well, I don't think this is his first mistake tactically as a manager. I think another big one that Brighton fans saw was when Brighton went to Stamford Bridge against Chelsea and lost in that fashion 4-2. And there were just some really easy mistakes that were made, especially at the back. And it just didn't look like a Premier League performance from Brighton. And Chelsea were actually quite poor that game. There are plenty of chances for Brighton to get into it, individual mistakes all across. But going on to this 7-0 defeat, I think it was just the fact that, yes, there's been so much press about Fabian Hurlitzer being an inexperienced manager in terms of the age he is and whatnot. He's done some great things with St. Pauli, but he's still relatively unproven. This has been a gamble. We know Tony Bloom is a gambling man. So when Brighton fans saw that 7-0, especially at that sort of midway point of the season where it's sort of an all or nothing at the moment, where you can either finish mid-table or you can finish in one of those European spots because it's so tight up there. Brighton fans were quite quick to go, oh, is it Hurlitzer out and whatnot? But the way he's responded with burning the tactics, and also I spoke to Adam Webster after Brighton beat Chelsea 3-0. It was their second win against Chelsea back-to-back, which was brilliant, one in the Cup and one in the league. And he was saying that after Fabian burnt all of those tactics, they then had some fantastic training sessions. He said some of the best training sessions they've had. We know that Fabian's his intensity of training as well. He does like to keep training intense, and I think that they've just stuck by Fabian, and he's been able to sort of come round. And the results that Brighton have been able to get, especially when we're talking about in a previous game, you know, they should have beaten Manchester City and having golden opportunities. I mean, it's a stark contrast to just a few games ago, even, you know, a month and a bit ago, where everyone was going, oh my gosh, here we go. This is going to be the start of the end. So I think he's responded really well, especially for a young manager. And, you know, he's not a boy, he is a man, and he's doing well. And I think, although Nottingham Forest are going to fancy themselves because of the way that they were able to detonate Brighton in that game, that it is going to be a closer affair, and I'm really, really looking forward to it as a fan.
Yeah, no, it's certainly going to be a good occasion at the Amex Stadium this Saturday. And join us after the break, and we'll be looking at the team news and players who may be doubtful for the match. So join us after the break. Well, thanks again, guys. So we were speaking earlier about the Brighton's upcoming match against Nottingham Forest at the Amex Stadium this Saturday, and potential players that have been missing out. Sam, Lewis Dunk has missed the last 6 matches with a rib injury. I was speaking to Ian just before the podcast about this, and Ian was of the opinion that he shouldn't come back in. That Adam Webster's been playing very well. If he is fit, he is the skipper. Where do you stand on that one, Sam?
I completely agree with Ian on this one. I think Adam Webster deserves to keep his place in the team. I think he's been brilliant in the time that Lewis Dunk has been out injured. He had obviously a little blip against Man City where he gave away that penalty. But I felt like on the whole, since Dunk's been out, Webster's really come in and just been brilliant in defence, really. He's kind of been really solid and not really let anything get past him. He's kind of done every individual job that he's had to do really well. He's a slot in alongside Van Heck really well. I think they complement each other nicely. So I feel like he definitely deserves to be in the team for this game. I think you obviously don't want to rush Lewis Dunk back as well. He's had a number of injury problems of late, and he remains a really important part of the team for Brighton. And I'm not at all suggesting that he should be squeezed out in any way, but I feel like he's been obviously out with a number of injuries, and you kind of want to ease him in gently and make sure you're not disrupting the harmony that's been built up in the squad in these running games. Really, so I think Hurlitzer, we'll try and keep things as it has been really in terms of the team, and not to make any too drastic changes. But when he was asked about Webster, he said he's a leader. He's always there for the team. He's so supportive, helpful, and sometimes also the voice for the team as well. When they need him, he's there, and that's something special. He never saw a player who's always that ready to come into a game and be immediately the best version of himself. He did obviously mention he has different options, and he could bring in Lewis Dunk if he decides to for this game. So yeah, time will tell. Time will tell on this one. But as I say, I think Webster definitely deserves to be there. Yeah.
Ian, it's Brighton have won their last 6, isn't it? And so Webster stays in, doesn't he, for you?
Well, he has to. I love Lewis Dunk. He's an Albion legend, and he can be every bit as positive in the dressing room and on the bench as he can on Saturday. There is no room, as much as I'm a sentimental old sod, there is no room for sentiment in football. And you have to go, as we said in part one, you have to go with the best 11 players available to you. And at this time, Adam Webster, you would pick Adam Webster over Lewis Dunk. You say there's no sentiment in football. We've seen this this week, sentiment creeping in, because I'm sorry, and I liked him when he played for us. Dan Burn, Adam Webster was more deserving of an England cap than Dan Burn. That was purely sentimental, something schmoozy, whatever, Tuchel trying to, but get some gravitas, get some brownie points. Webster should have been in that squad much before, but 32 years old, never played international football. It's crazy. But anyway, move on. Well done to the Toon for beating the Scousers. Marvellous. But no, so going back to Lewis, he will come back and he will play a part, but at this time we need to go with our strongest 11. Yeah. And he can't win. He's he's damned if he does. He's damned if he doesn't. Say he does bring him back, and we get another Rome where he makes a mistake or two. That's ever going to be remembered. Hertzler changed a winning team. You can't change. You cannot change a winning team. The other thing is we got this factor with you were mentioning, Derren, when we were talking about the three lads coming from South America, and they're wondering if they're going to be tired. They're travelling back first class.
Estupiñán, Gomez and Pedro.
Yeah, they're travelling back first class. All right?
Yeah.
If anyone who's ever been lucky enough to be in first class, you get treated like a king in first class. They'll be stepping off that plane as fresh as a daisy. So all this rubbish about jet lag and whatever, they will be fine. Yeah. So if they're the three of the strongest players we've got, they have to play.
Yeah, no, it's a concern.
And we know Pedro, as I've said before, they're challenging Mark Lawrenson as my greatest ever player to pull on the blue and white shirt. He's a game changer and he's a match winner on his own. It would be absolute. I can't use the adjectives because this is a family show. But if I get there and see that team sheet come out at 4:00 on Saturday, if he's not playing because he's a little bit tired, sorry, doesn't wash with me.
Yeah, well, I don't think he played against, because they got Brazil were beaten by Argentina quite heavily, weren't they, last night? And I don't think Pedro played, so hopefully he'll be fresh. Estupiñán and Gomez both played last night for Ecuador and Paraguay, respectively. But I don't think Pedro played against Argentina. Pardon?
Are they in the air as we speak?
I'd imagine they'd be in the air. So it's a 15-hour flight.
Nuts and champagne and couple of movies. Have a meal. Get your head down. You've got a lovely bed there. Don't even go there. They're not travelling in battle class with all the TUI lot, are they? They are coming back in luxury. So it's a non-starter as I'm concerned. Sorry.
Hopefully he should be fresh, and he has been good. He has been very good, hasn't he, Henry, for Brighton of late. João Pedro. All things being equal, he would probably start ahead of Welbeck, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I think so. I just think that he's got the ability to sort of turn a game on its head, and we saw that when Brighton played Fulham, and he was just such a fox in the box, and he was able to sort of get that penalty decision through. And although there was a bit of controversy over that, and if you're playing against him, you hate him, but if you're playing, if he is for your team, you love him.
He's one of those players, isn't he? Yeah,
he is like that, but he can change a game. I've got to
say
that.
That's why we love him, though, isn't it? That's why we've taken him to our hearts. He will have his picture outside the ground in 10 years' time, because he is that. He's just an exciting player. They only come, I'm an old git, unlike you three young uns. There's only a few players down the years that when they get the ball, you have that sense of anticipation.
I've got to say
we are like pigs in muck at the moment because we've got two. We've got Moton and we've got.
I was going to say that, yeah.
But when they get the ball at their feet, you think, hold on, something could happen here.
Yeah.
Even if it's a goal kick, you think something could happen here. And, that after 52 years, that feeling is very rare, very few and far between, I assure you. So, to have two in the team, that's superb because they're both match winners. And just giving a mention to Welbeck, having his Indian summer in his career, what an indictment by Wayne Rooney the other week on Sky, who said, I wish he was still at Manchester United. He would do a job here. And I think that says it all. And we know to have someone like Welbeck on the bench and in the dressing room with all the young players in their ears, it's brilliant. It is a luxury. Wouldn't it be great if he comes on and gets the winner? I might even run on the bench.
That would be the ideal scenario, yeah. And I think you're right. With that front five that Brighton have now, there's very few squads in the Premier League that have that attacking the talent that Brighton have. I think it's really impressive. And Sam, would you go with that as well? Pedro ahead of Welbeck, all being well?
I think so. I think you've got to go with João Pedro. Obviously, as we mentioned, he's the difference maker in kind of key moments, and he brings that little bit of flair. But then you can't rule out Danny Welbeck because he's been brilliant this season as well. But I feel like Danny Welbeck's a great option to bring off the bench as well. You've seen in recent games, and we're coming back from that injury.
That winner against Newcastle was such a
scored.
Finish,
Scored the winner against Bournemouth from the bench. Then he scored the winner against Newcastle from the bench as well. So I think he'll continue that going. Really, he can add something different if things are not going quite right, and he just gives a bit of a different option. But you've got to start with João Pedro. I think he's obviously quite a class player and gets fans off their seats, and he kind of frustrates opposition defenders as well. And he's clever as well. He knows kind of the dark arts, as you say. He was clever to win that penalty against Fulham, and if Brighton do get a penalty, he's going to score it. He's one of those players that he's just so composed from the penalty spot. And I feel like you've got to start João Pedro, but Danny Welbeck's a superb option to have coming off from the bench.
No, I think Marco Silva even said that after the game. He had no complaints with Pedro. He said that he did his job, didn't he, when he went down quite easily for that penalty against Fulham. So, but Henry, one other player I just wanted to raise with you quickly was Matt O'Reilly. He's been injured for the last couple of games, had a knee injury. He's hoping to be fit again after the international break, but he's yet to really make his mark, isn't he, on this team this season? What have you made of him following his 25 million move from Celtic? And I guess Jorginho's just been better than him, hasn't he? He hasn't been able to sort of get ahead of Jorginho.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I think also it's down a little bit to a bit of unfortunate circumstances, because we know when he had that start against Crawley Town that he got injured straight away. And that was a real damper from the off, because he wasn't going to be back till, I think it was around Christmas time. And he, just tried to make his mark. And I really did feel for him, because I think, that's still a considerable amount of money in, Brighton terms, £25 million to bolster that midfield, especially after we've had quite a few departures. And he's had 12 Premier League appearances, 7 off the bench. And his most notable movement or action was that goal in the 2-1 win against Manchester City at the Amex. But that was in November. And I think that he's just lacking a certain spark at the moment.
He hasn't kicked on since, has he?
No, exactly. And he's, there's people in front of him, like you say. Jorginho's just become this really likable character, not just because of his play style, but because of the way he is. I mean, even on Brighton's social media, he's having a laugh, he's having a giggle, and he's just seems like the most, excitable man in the room when Brighton won a game and whatnot. And I think that that's really hard. It's not just about how he plays, but he's almost able to rub off this sort of positive attitude with other players. I don't think, if I'm honest, I don't want to judge, but it does seem like Matt O'Reilly's not been able to sort of mix in with the group of players as well just yet. Whether that will happen and he'll have this, fantastic opportunity to get involved in this game and do well and have put in a real shift against Nottingham Forest. We'll see. I hope so, because it'll create more competition, and it would be great to see him press on and do well in a Brighton shirt. But I mean, the 2 years he was at Celtic from 2022 to 2024, if you look at the amount of appearances he's had 93 with 25 goals. So he's probably thinking, I'm a little bit frustrated at the moment. I'm not getting the opportunities I'd quite like, whether that's down to injuries or placement, whatever that is. So I do hope that he's able to have a strong finish to this season, because it wouldn't be nice to see him go in the summer. And there's been a few murmurs about that. So I'd hope for him to stay, press on in a Brighton shirt and compete to, that attacking midfield position.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, hopefully he'll play some part in that. But let's have a quick, just before we go, quick predictions for the game this Saturday. Ian, we'll start with you. What do you think the score will be this Saturday at the Amex?
Albion 2, Forest 0. And I think we'll have Moton will score, and then Pedro will score in the last 10 minutes, and he won't need to give it all that, because the place will be rocking and rolling. The roof will come off there, and the only thing I've got this in my mind, I want Fulham to knock Palace out at lunchtime, because the jeopardy of drawing Palace in an FA Cup semi-final.
Oh, I know.
Because it is a one-off game, and to lose an FA Cup semi-final to Palace, I don't know. I think I'd have to go on holiday 52 weeks of the year. I just don't think I could cope with that, because I know I'd get a lot of. And there's a lot of Palace fans living in Worthing. You don't realise the demographic.
Oh yeah.
It's horrible. They're amongst us, like the Marsh. Anyway, I think we'll win 2-0. I think we're rocking and rolling. Remember where we're going to win the FA Cup. Done and dusted.
All right. Okay. Well, that's 2-0 from Ian. Sam, you positive as well?
Yeah, I'm positive. I think that 7-0 is going to be in the minds of all the players, and it's just going to be motivation in itself. I think 3-1. 3-1 Brighton.
3-1 Brighton. Okay. I'm going to go 2-2 and then a winner in extra time, I think, from Brighton. Danny Welbeck.
Again.
And I'm going to go for another Welbeck winner. I think he's got something this year off the bench.
That'd be good.
Yeah. Henry, how are you feeling ahead of this one?
I'm genuinely nervous. I'm going to say 2-1, and I think that they're going to score first quite early on in the game. So I think will be nervy. Yeah, I think Forest will be nervy. Not nervy, sorry. Forest will be on us, trying to press us, and I think Brighton will be a little bit nervy at the start. And then once they get the game plan going, João Pedro will score to make it 1-1. And then I do think that guy Welbs inevitably is gonna get a goal.
You think Welbeck? Yeah.
I reckon he's gonna get it. Sort of. I'm gonna go in detail. I'm gonna say 91st minute. That's what I'm saying. Come on, the Albion.
Come on. Well, there we go.
And if anyone runs on the pitch, they do it in excitement. So can the club have a little bit of clemency, a little bit lenient with people? Because if we score in the 91st minute, the place is going to go ballistic.
It's going to erupt.
Well, yeah. I will erupt, and I'm 60 years old. The place will go ballistic, right? So let's remember that, stewards and coppers, that we're all excited and we all love the club.
Oh yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thanks a lot. We'll let you go. We'll let Sam get off to Buckingham Palace shortly as well, who's got an appointment at the Palace. So, but thank you very much. You can catch up with all the latest sports news covering everything we've talked about today at sussexworld.co.uk, and you can watch more excellent videos on shotstv.com and Freeview channel 262. But thanks very much for watching. Thank you.